Hello and welcome to a historic episode 250 of Sutton Impact Family Style, minus a few special episodes in there that we didn't count as numbers. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and we'll start with an NFL discussion. And Jason and I were talking offline. I don't think either of us saw the Buffalo massacre coming because it's a Belichick coach team, and you would have never thought that the Belichick defense could be torched the way that Josh Allen lit him up last night.
No, but to be fair, if Josh Allen plays the way Josh Allen played last night, they're winning the Super Bowl. They said,
Yeah,
for whatever it's worth, I actually have a little analytic point I'm going to make later, but it was supposedly the best offensive game against a winning team against a top-ranked. There's all these little caveats, but against a top 10
yeah.
defense in the playoffs. He was 5 touchdowns and just destroying them on the legs with his arm.
And we talked. I said that Micah Hyde interception.
Oh,
That I thought for sure it was a touchdown until I saw Micah Hyde roll over with the ball. I was in shock. That was a fantastic play.
yeah. When you watch that replay, like it couldn't be perfectly timed anymore. The receiver thought he had it. Mac Jones, Bill Belichick, every Patriot fan, and then Micah Hyde sliding
And,
him with the ball.
and for all the talk about the weather, I don't think the weather really played into it. I think both teams were well prepared for it. They play in that kind of weather to begin with, and they handled it well. I know they were worried about the wind affecting the ball and everything, but I think there's more. What I was watching this afternoon before we started our call was the Buccaneers game, and we have a lot of wind down here, and the wind is really affecting the ball in Tampa Bay.
I think Buffalo's kicker is telling everybody that the cold affected the ball.
Hey, that one kick he had, that total shank on the extra point.
Yeah,
There's not that much wind in the world. He just blew that kick.
he did, and he blew a second one too. So
Yeah,
not
it
quite
was
as
the second
badly.
one. I'm sorry, it was the second one I saw.
Oh,
I
okay.
missed the first one. The second one was ridiculously bad. I don't see how you can blame that on anything, but just that you shanked it.
No, it's true. It was, yeah, but Buffalo looks fantastic.
They looked as good as they looked all year long. And the other game, even though the Bengals had won in 31 years and they're in the AFC North, I kind of had a soft spot for the Raiders for all they've been through this year, and I really like the guy coaching them.
Yeah,
So I rooted for the Raiders in that game, and I was sad for the outcome. Even though I know a lot of people in Cincinnati, and it's been 31 years. In fact, they actually teed that game up by showing the Bengals' losses in all those playoff games,
including a famous one to the Steelers.
where Van Olhoffen rolled into his knee. They said that was the first or second play of the game.
It was. It was really early on. It was like the first drive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember it being early. I didn't remember it being the first or second play. Yeah, but that was it.
and it's tough too
Like so,
because
I love Joe Burrow. He is Joe Cole. He reminds me of Jim McMahon
he does.
with a much better arm. But he reminds me of Jim McMahon with his confidence and his attitude. Like if Jim McMahon and Brett Favre had a baby, I think it'd be Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and as an AFC
They really
North,
like him.
with our team in the AFC North, it's tough to have that dude in there.
Yeah, and Chase is,
Ridiculous.
ridiculous, and they're so in tune with each other. That's a tough out for whoever they play.
It is. I thought there was some bad coaching on Cincinnati's part yesterday. They did a lot of that run, long third down pass situation. They got themselves in positions. You could argue it looked like he was coaching not to lose and was a little bit coaching scared.
Hmm.
But they got the win. And then if you're the Raiders, the other thing I heard from Schefter and some other people is that this was not necessarily, but there was a lot riding on this for Derek Carr and that coach as far as whether they were definitely going to be brought back or now the questions are much more opened up, which I don't think is necessarily fair. I get the Derek Carr thing.
Yeah,
He's sort of like a slightly more likable Kirk Cousins, I guess. I don't know.
yeah. I think they both come back. I think he becomes the coach, and I think that Carr signs because of that. Because Carr said that this was the most fun he's ever had playing on a team, and the best sense of team he's ever had. So I think that if you go look at it, that's a good way to go.
And they did not. They were not the. I mean, we're going to talk refs in a few seconds, but they were certainly not the beneficiaries of any of the calls last night.
No, they really weren't.
And they did commit a lot of penalties, but if it was close, it seemed to go in the Bengals' favor.
But when we talk about the officiating, I mean that Bill Cowher's commentary was, "I know New York reviewed the play, the visual. Did they review the audio?"
Yeah.
And that was his point. He kept saying that over and over and over again, and nobody got an answer.
No.
I mean, nobody from the NFL said, yes, we've listened to the audio, or there was no talking head that said, yes, they listened to the audio. It was just out there, and that's a big question.
It's a very big question. And, we were talking off air, and I guess this is the perfect time to bring it up, but I was reading some things about other referees in other places, and in FIFA, which is not a great organization by any stretch, historically. But the one thing they do is most of the refs retire by 45. But if you reach the age of 45, FIFA has the right to physically test you and mentally test you. And they can let you go no matter what your contract status is based on how you do those tests.
And I think that's very reasonable.
It is. It's a very physically demanding job,
You look at baseball umpire.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of those guys could pass a physical test?
No.
Very few.
Very few.
Because they stand there. They don't ever have to move because of the way the game is played. So, I mean, they can be 400 pounds and not affect their performance not affect their job security. I won't say it doesn't affect their performance, but it's kind of crazy.
It is.
And NFL referees, I mean, you have to move. I mean, you have turf. But soccer and basketball referees and NHL referees, the physical aspect of that is much, much more significant. So I think the FIFA rule is a good rule.
It's a very good rule. And then the other thing we talked about, I mean, we love Sky Judge from the XFL. The NFL, it seemed like the NFL this year sort of dabbled with it.
Yeah, I thought they were actually going to do it.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's what the deal is, but I feel like they need to just embrace technology completely. I mean,
absolutely.
You should have not just a Sky Judge, but you should just have a ref that is watching all, because you can watch the camera angles a number of times and you can just buzz the person on the feet. I mean, I can't, when we go to the stadium and watch a game, like, it's so fast, it's so much field to cover, like, you end up watching the Jumbotron. And you see a couple of angles and you have a much better idea of what happened than anybody on the field ever would, no matter how good you are at your job. So
there's just so much technology that could be employed to make it significantly more likely that the correct call was made.
Yeah, like they talked about
whether it's lasers or chips in a ball and different things like that. But I remember when they started talking about adopting the Sky Judge, and we both, because we talked about it, and we said it would be a great idea, that we really liked that. That was a fun thing that the XFL did, and we kind of enjoyed it because you got to hear the debate and everything, and it was good, right?
And it was way faster than anything else that the NFL does.
So the way I'm thinking is that the NFL referees somehow had the opportunity to block that from happening.
Yeah, I think they definitely did.
Because they might find it embarrassing, and whenever we have a call reversed, I mean, they don't shame the guy.
No.
They don't say, well, referee number 47 really blew that call. Here's the real call. They don't do that. I mean, there's no shaming, and I mean, a lot of it's bang bang, and you gotta see it, but you want it to be right.
Yeah, the shame seems to come because we all have 8,000 replays in talking head shows, and when you don't get it right, that's when we notice it. But like if a guy called it a fumble, Sky Judge buzzed in, like, nope, it's not a fumble. This is what happened. I wouldn't think anything about the guy that missed the call. I'd be like, it's great, it's cool, man. Like, wouldn't even thought twice about it.
This morning, the lead story was the whistle.
Yeah. But again, congratulations to Cincinnati and Buffalo, because
I was watching before we started the show. I was watching Tampa had gone right down the field and scored the very first time.
Well, they just scored again.
So it's 14-0.
14-0. Because Sean Vaughn and Giovanni Bernard are both running touchdowns already. So
yeah,
I mean, the Eagles were not a very good football. They didn't beat a single good team all year.
No, and you say what you want about did they miss Chris Godwin? Yeah, Do they miss Antonio Brown? Yeah, but do they have enough weapons to make up for it? Yeah, a lot of other teams, those two players not being able to play would be, and Leonard Fournette, a lot of teams that would be crippling, that they would
Right.
not be able to play or do their offense, but they're loaded.
And I think it's enough firepower to beat the Eagles for sure. I think once you get to be playing, a little bit further down the line, like if you're playing San Francisco or Dallas or Arizona or LA or whoever, the Packers, I feel like you are going to miss that extra firepower a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm still impressed by the depth they have, and they brought Bernard back today, and immediately he becomes a focal point in their offense.
Oh yeah.
Out of the backfield and everything. So I mean, they're able to adjust fairly easily.
Well, I can't wait any longer. We have to have our Steeler minute because they are in the playoffs. Apparently, Juju is playing.
Yeah.
James Washington off the COVID list. Probably won't see the field even if he dresses. But
Najee's playing.
Najee's playing. And again, as Ben Roethlisberger, people have loved breaking down his very sarcastic. Well, we're gonna we're 20-point deficit. They're the best team. We got no chance. But it's house money.
It is house money. They should be loose as a goose and come out and just play their thing. And there should be a little bit of heat on the Chiefs because if they lose this game, it's going to be how could you possibly lose to that team?
And T.J. Watt says he's as healthy as he's been all season. He wasn't very healthy for the last Chiefs game, although they were missing Kelsey and Hill for most of that game. So, I mean, it goes back and forth. But, the Steelers team's been counted out all year. I've done it myself. And, it is exciting right now. And bringing Juju back to get those Ray McLeod minutes is very exciting for me on offense.
Yeah, no question.
I like Ray as a returner, but I don't really like him in the offense, despite catching a wide open pass on fourth down that everybody's praising.
Well, I anticipate Kelsey scoring 2 touchdowns today.
See, I've already talked myself into the Devin Bush revival game.
Okay. I don't think they have anybody to cover him.
Well, that's why they brought in Schobert, That's why they drafted a Devin Bush,
But Schobert doesn't show me that he can cover the tight ends all year long.
No, and that's not even the Travis Kelce tight ends. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like I said, like Ben said, they should be 20-point underdogs at this point, but,
Well, if the Steelers win tonight, we might have to have a special edition show midweek.
Oh, without a doubt.
And just talk about that because it would be such an accomplishment.
Well, I guess while we're here, the next game we have we assume Tampa Bay wins today. Who do you like in San Francisco, Dallas today?
I like San Francisco. I've not been impressed with Dallas all year. They've been so inconsistent.
Yeah, I do too. I actually really like them. They look fantastic.
And I'm not, I think that, Jimmy G's not great, but he's pretty good.
And this may be hyperbole, but
Defense plays well, and they run the ball, and they're physical. They're more physical than Dallas.
and Debo might be the best player in all of football.
Debo Samuel's awesome to watch.
He's absolutely incredible. Running the ball, catching the ball. I think if you want to argue with me that he's the best receiver in football, I'm not going to argue back.
No, he's very physical and very fast. He's a good combination.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here with my San Francisco 49ers sweatshirt on and my Pittsburgh Steelers cap.
Yeah. And obviously,
that's my interest today.
I assume we're both picking the Chiefs tonight. We're rooting, obviously, for the Steelers, but we assume that if we're picking...
we have to pick the Chiefs.
And then Monday night, I feel is a real crapshoot. Rams.
It's funny, Jason. I went back and listened to one of our shows.
Yeah.
When we were picking the NFC West, we said that any team could win, and this would probably be the division that would have the most teams in the playoffs, and they have 3.
Yeah.
So we got that one right.
We did. And, the Dolphins came on and won 7 of their last 8 games, so something.
Yeah.
With my bad Dolphins prediction. But I guess before we close out the NFL, we should talk about, some of those firings.
Incredible. I mean, the 2 I can't understand. I can't understand firing Miami's coach Flores. I really liked him.
Yeah.
And he wins 8 out of his last 9 games. How do you fire that guy?
He's got the best winning percentage since...
Philosophical differences.
Yeah. Well, apparently...
Try the GM then.
Yeah. I was like, I don't understand why the GM gets all the power sometimes. It's like, maybe that guy doesn't know what he's doing.
And then how do you fire the Texans coach when he won the same number of games they won last year without Deshaun Watson?
And without Tyrod Taylor, got a rookie in Davis Mills. You traded away some of their best skill players.
Yeah.
And that team was feisty all year long.
And how do you fire him after 1 year?
Yeah. Like, for a team that, I mean, like I said, you the whole Deshaun Watson distraction, not having your starting quarterback. Then you're going to start Tyrod Taylor. But Tyrod Taylor is like, just a walking calamity. He goes down. Then you got Davis Mills, who looks like he might be, he looked really, really good. He looked something.
He's got a good arm.
But you traded away a lot of your pieces to try to build up for this next year draft and moving forward. And you still had a really scrappy team that won the same night. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And
the Mike Zimmer thing, I understand. I mean, he had plenty of time there. The Nagy thing, I think there's more to it than meets the eye. But he was coach of the year 2 years ago.
It's pretty crazy, yeah.
Joe Judge, that's a cluster. That's a mess. That whole organization's a mess.
It is. I think, he was really embarrassing down the stretch, too. I think he cost himself that job with that rant.
Yeah.
But again, none of those Barkley, Daniel Jones, you look at all the players under his tutelage, none of them seem to get better.
No.
And
in fact, they seem to have
regressed. And that seems like that's got to be part your GM, part your coach, and they're both out now. So maybe the Giants and the Mara family can figure out how to turn it around. But it sounds like Flores is going to get a job. So
it sounds like he's going to definitely get a job.
But once again, at this moment, we are down to one African American coach in all of football, which is obviously pretty freaking absurd.
So looking at all the coaching jobs that are open right now.
Yes.
Let's say you're the best candidate. Which job do you have your pick of the jobs, which job do you take?
It's hard to say because, obviously
each of them has problems.
I guess, I wouldn't be afraid of a big market. If I have a new GM that's coming in and he's putting me as his coach, and I've got, I think, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks with the Giants, and I got Tony and some of those other guys, I kind of like the Giants job. I wouldn't want to go near the Texans job. That seems like a disaster.
The organization in Texas, the organization in
Miami are both messes.
Yeah, and the organization in Jacksonville's a cluster. Those are 3 bad organizations.
Very bad.
Minnesota is not a bad job. You got to figure out, you got too much money tied up in Kirk Cousins.
Way too much, yeah.
And the Bears job isn't a bad job.
No.
So those are the 3 I would consider. But I think you're right. I think I would take the Giants because of the draft capital and the opportunity for a new GM and a new coach to come in together and be simpatico. And you've got some talent. I think you got to decide if Daniel Jones is your guy. But if he's not, you for sure have some opportunity to make changes because you've got all kind of collateral and money. And, maybe you get Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And I think the other thing with the Bears job, isn't that supposedly, aren't they talking about maybe selling that? It would stay in Chicago, obviously, but potentially a new owner in Chicago, right?
That's been talked about. They're pretty up in age.
Right. And I just feel like, if you look at the history of, we're talking about Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, anytime a new owner comes in, he likes to clean house and bring in his own guys. So I'd feel like, I'm going in there with a second-year quarterback and kind of a rough team. I don't look like, I'm not beating the world off. You get a new owner in there and I get fired for, really not even being my fault.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it all plans out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there can be a lot of hiring done as these teams get eliminated and they're able to take people off of these teams that are in the playoffs.
Very much so. Oh, I'll do my last little NFL rant about the analytics because I've noticed you're a teacher and you've done statistical things. Sometimes if the mean is a 70 in the class, the reason it's a 70 is the best team, your best kids are getting 99s. So as far as following the numbers in the NFL, it's the mean may be a 46, But that doesn't mean that the Bears and the Jaguars should be going for it on every fourth down. And then I also was thinking, like, the easiest example of like why you need a coach and not just a computer. If we just look at the two Steelers Ravens games, I know that the analytics claims that, momentum doesn't exist. But in the first Steeler game, when they went for the two, which I think was the right call, the Steelers offense had looked as good as it looked all year. They had put up 17 points in the final, 17 minutes of the game. They were throwing them all over the Ravens, and the Ravens had just lost. They were down to their fourth and fifth corners. So I feel like in that situation, you go for the two, go for the win, because it's in Pittsburgh.
You don't want to give them back the ball when they're hot.
No.
I agree.
But then you look at the last Steelers Ravens game, which I'm glad the Ravens did what they did. But you had an offense in Pittsburgh that was they could not move the ball at all. And you could have gone for the field goal, and then when you kick that field goal in regulation, you win that game. Instead, you went for it on fourth down, turned it over, and Pittsburgh won in overtime, which, again, I'm very happy about. But that seemed like the wrong fourth down call in that situation. Because if you're playing against a struggling offense and you've got that team figured out, just take the points. But in the other, it just seems like there's too much of this, always go for it what the numbers say. But, because again, the Chargers have a ridiculous fourth down conversion percentage, but they didn't make the playoffs and they lost a lot of games they probably should have won.
They did. They lost more close games than any other team.
And they often
probably won more close games than any other team, except for the Steelers.
Yeah. And, sometimes 3 points is 3 points. And you, instead of losing in overtime, it's not the worst thing in the world.
No. We've got to talk about Jim Harbaugh being a candidate for NFL job.
Yeah, although the scuttlebutt I've read online from different Twitter people on Twitter is that it's almost as much a move to finagle a new long-term Michigan contract more so than go back to the pros.
Probably. There's probably some truth there, but if somebody open up the bank vault, say, one of these teams that has a lot of potential, you never know.
Yeah, it's true.
I want to talk about the NBA for a little bit. I'm excited. I told Jason offline, I'm actually going to go see the Grizzlies play the Magic on February the 5th. And John Morant is one of the most exciting players I've seen since I've been following the NBA, which is 50 years, 60 years. So I'm excited to go see a talent, a generational talent. That's what I would call him. And I want to see him play, and I'm excited about that opportunity.
Yeah. The closest thing, I've seen Iverson comparisons. I've seen young Derrick Rose before the knee injury. And all those seem pretty apt, but he seems slightly better than both those guys.
He does. To me, he's better than both of them. He can do more things, and I think he's got more physical talent than both of them as well.
And if you're a fan of team basketball, it's hard not to love the Grizz.
Yeah, the Grizz and the Cavs are my two favorite teams to watch right now, and the Warriors. Those are my three favorite teams to watch.
And you know who else slides to probably my fourth spot?
Who?
LaMelo Ball and the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, they're fun to watch as well. A little more showy than the other three.
A little showy, yeah. But, you go back to, the Tony Allen, Zoe, grit and grind Grizzlies, and these Grizzlies have a little bit of that grit and grind, which has become sort of that Memphis identity of basketball. And they see, the Heat culture, now you got the Grizzly culture. And, you got a lot of young guys on that team, and they're exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, they're fun to watch. So I'm excited about that. And I'm actually going to go see the Magic play the Pistons, so I get to see Kate Cunningham. And as I said all along, you'll be able to see Kate Cunningham after his second year, entering his third year, as to how good he's really doing.
I think
as they get more talent around him, and he gets used to playing with better players, he will emerge as a real top talent.
I think most people see it. I think the part of the problem with him is he's a player that makes everyone around him better, and the better players around him are just going to get even better, and they'll be really good. Mm-hmm. And then he's not a TikTok. He's not an Instagram player. He does so many little things and smart things and non-splash things. He doesn't make a lot of splashy plays that put him on the highlight reel. So I feel like that keeps him under the radar a little bit more.
And he's going to be good.
He's very,
I'm comfortable with that.
And I guess,
The Lakers Lakers continue to fade.
Yeah, it's as a Russ fan, it's been very sad watch.
I know. That could be my worst prediction ever because I thought
I did
this
too.
was going to be the one last great run for the Lakers with LeBron and everybody else and all the dinosaurs he had playing with him. But I don't see them, and I don't see them getting it together, and I don't see them reshaping it, and I don't see them making a big playoff run.
And have you heard anybody outside of the Lakers and Rich Paul ever talk about Horton Tucker as a real asset?
You know,
Supposedly he's their only like trade asset, and I'm like, but what are you gonna get for Horton Tucker? Like a 2? Like
yeah.
I don't see him being enticing. I don't think they can trade a pick away to like 2028. Anthony Davis just
They're going to have to liquidate that team next year
yeah.
and try and get a bunch of free agents with the money they have because they don't have anything to trade for free agents. They got to liquidate what they have. So Russ, Carmelo, all those guys have to go if you want to keep LeBron and see what you have. But I'm not optimistic.
No, and Russ has become the most untradeable player in the NBA. So
Yeah, the contract, you're not going to take that contract on. I mean, as we talked about Kirk Cousins' contract, Russ's contract, Ben Simmons' contract. Who's the other one? Who's the guard that was sitting out that Houston has?
oh, John Wall, yeah.
John Wall. Those contracts are just they're like a guillotine. I mean, you got to kill yourself for having a contract.
And back to the Sixers, yeah. I mean, I know I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Joel Embiid's playing absolutely phenomenal basketball right now. The rest of the team's looking pretty good. I think they're 4th or 5th in East. I don't want to waste another Joel Embiid. Like, Ben Simmons is called the bluff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Morey thought, all right, we'll fine you, we'll hold you out. Then eventually you'll come back, you'll play for us, and we'll figure it out from there. But he's not coming back.
Yeah.
And you have an asset that, every other team is looking at. Like, they're watching as good as Ben Simmons is, they're looking at that playoff game where every playoff game you've ever played where you've disappeared. And then they're looking at you right now and being like, do I want to take this on? So if I'm the Sixers, I got to take what I can get and try to put as many pieces around this team right now to help Embiid. Because he's not Giannis. He's not LeBron. Like, I don't think he's going to be playing to 35.
No, you're hurting yourself now by not doing anything.
And again, if you're Daryl Morey, you're going to eat crow, and you're not going to get, at least on paper, you're going to lose the trade. And he seems like he's got too big of an ego to, on paper, lose a trade. So,
Yeah.
I heard something else that I thought would interest you, perhaps, as a baseball guy. Do you think baseball could do their own version of the Manning cast? And do you think that would be so successful if they could find somebody?
They're trying because they've got A-Rod set up to do something on Sunday nights, and they're going to surround him with some people. So they're going to have an alternative broadcast, just like the Mannings.
Do people like A-Rod?
Well, I mean, that's the question. I mean,
I know the Suits do. But, and obviously I went to, I got my undergrad in Massachusetts, and I still have Massachusetts friends. So, A-Rod is always going to be, person non grata for a number of reasons. But the Mannings come off, and I'm sure, part of it is shticky and show, but they seem pretty genuine and fun. A-Rod seems really phony every time he talks.
Yeah, and so it depends on who you put with him.
Yeah.
To balance him out and everything. I think it's, I think whoever, that format seems to work. So I think that whoever tries, and I give you kudos for trying it.
Yeah.
But you got to have the right mix of people.
But I think, like I said, if you watch, some of the stuff the Mannings did was a little lame to me. But
oh yeah.
At the same time, they gave each other shit. They seemed pretty happy. I don't know. It felt more it wasn't. Nothing is ever going to reach Shaq and Charles Barkley just going back and forth with each other, because they seem like they have a full on I don't give a shit attitude. They'll say whatever they're going to say, which is what makes them so likable. But the Mannings at least were close. Whereas I feel like it doesn't matter who you put with A-Rod, you're never going to get that with an A-Rod.
Now think about if the NBA took the TNT crew and gave them a setup like the Mannings.
Oh yeah,
Nobody would watch the other thing.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And maybe 4 people would be too many. but it could be pretty interesting. Like, what if they had the pregame and then Shaq and Barkley did the broadcast? I mean, I don't know how well that would work, but it would be funny.
I mean, if you're talking about, the first 3 quarters of an NBA game, I'm watching those guys with it more than I'd watch any.
Yeah, it would be entertaining. You would have no idea what's coming next, and you would have no idea. You'd have to be watching pretty clearly because it's obvious they would miss some plays.
Oh, yeah. Without doubt.
Well, entertainment?
I'm still all about those Yellow Jackets. That show's got its hooks in me. All 10 episodes this year were fantastic. And I can't wait for season 2, which I know I have to wait quite a while for, I'm assuming. I don't even think they've begun production. So,
Well, I'll watch episode 10 tonight or tomorrow, and I've enjoyed it just as well. But my big entertainment news for the week is Justified Redux.
yeah.
Timothy Olyphant coming back on using an Elmore Leonard novel based in Detroit. And, I hope they find as many interesting characters to go along with Timothy Olyphant and Raylan to make this one go. But that's my only concern. I mean, it's going to be tough to not have a Boyd, tough to not have a Caitlin Deaver or a Dewey. Some of these people that were good foils, it was great.
Yeah, they only missed once in that entire show, and that was the Michael Rappaport character, and even he wasn't terrible.
No, he was acceptable. He wasn't good.
Yeah.
He was acceptable. But I mean, the Boyd Raylan thing. When Caitlin Deaver was in those shows was great. The two women, his ex-wife and Boyd's wife, were both great.
Perfectly cast, yeah.
Perfectly cast is really good. So excited about that. That's my prime entertainment moment for the week, even though it's not going to happen this week. But I'm excited for whenever that comes out. I think I'm going to have an opening night party that night and whoever I know in my area that's a Justified fan, I'll have come over.
And if you haven't watched Justified, watch Justified. And just know that it's really good for the pilot's excellent. There's 5 or 6 episodes where you might start to question it, but then it gets phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. If you haven't watched Justified, you've really done yourself a disservice. I got a food moment. My food moment was something Jason introduced a couple weeks ago. He told me about a cookie place called Crumble that has 4 different cookies every week, and they always have a sugar cookie and always have chocolate chip.
Yeah.
And so instead of having a birthday cake, I went there and got my birthday cookie, which would happen to be a frozen hot chocolate, which is a chocolate chip cookie with chocolate icing and chocolate frosting and marshmallows.
Yeah.
And it was outstanding. So if you've got a Crumble, and when I put it out on Twitter, I was surprised by how many people had heard of it and already been there and talking about it being their favorite cookie. So if you have one, and find out if you got one close to you. If you do, get off your ass and go get a Crumble cookie.
And if you're ever invited to a friend's house or a party, you bring in a box, you'll give it a 6-pack of the Crumble cookies and bring them in. You'll be very popular at the party. It's a great, it's got a good presentation, good packaging.
Absolutely. And they're almost $4 a cookie, so they're not cheap.
No.
But after you take that second bite of that cookie, you're going to forget how much it cost you. It's that good.
And they're big enough that you could definitely split them pretty easily too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean,
I
could.
When you see the box for 6 cookies is as big as a box for a dozen donuts.
Yeah.
And they look really good in there. So go look at my Twitter. You'll see a picture of my cookies.
And I guess for the rest of the day, enjoy the playoff games. Root for the Steelers. At the very least, if you're not a Chiefs fan, it's chaos and it helps you guys out moving forward.
Yeah. But it'll be fun, and I'm looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to 49er Dallas game at 4:30.
Yes.
I
And
knew this first game was not going to be good. I anticipate the Steeler game not being good, but I'm hopeful. So the Dallas 49er game is my game of the day. We'll see.
And my biggest question going into the next week is how good are the Titans?
Yeah.
I don't know. They don't see they just keep winning. They lose all their players. They started 91 players this year and they still won. So
They have good coaching. I like their coach.
yeah.
All right, everybody, enjoy your football.
All right.